No one who I know who's truly successful is ever intimidated by anyone else's path to success. For example, Mitch, Travis, if one of you were friends, you guys come to San Diego, we're BSing, Mitch tells me, yeah, I'm closing on a $50 million deal, next week, it's awesome. I will feel genuinely happy for you, man. And instead of being like, oh man, this guy, be jealous, like, hey, how did you do that?
What's up, everybody? I am Mitchell England, and this is the 0 to 100 podcast. Got my amazing, beautiful, handsome co-host, Gabriel Hamill, and Travis is with us today as well.
You've used that joke way too many times.
It's only one time.
I knew it was coming.
It was one time. It was one time, and Gabe loved it. He was smiling before I even finished. He absolutely loved it. Travis, you're a good-looking, wonderful man as well. Today, we also have a guest, Adit, on. But before that, just a reminder.
He's also good looking and wonderful. Adit.
He is a very, very, very handsome man. You'll get more handsome with his story, I'm sure. Anyway, so 0 to 100 is all about time freedom through cash flow real estate. We believe we can use real estate. We have used real estate to get free. And that's the first domino to your life. That's the first domino to your health, to travel, to giving back, starting a nonprofit, volunteering, hanging out, being with family, supporting family, whatever that is. We really lean on real estate, cash flow real estate, that is, to get free. And so today we have an awesome guest, Adit. I'm going to read his bio, and then we're going to jump into his story and learn more about his journey. So I'll read this quick. In 2019, Adit left the military with $0, no experience, no education, no connections, nothing, which I love, by the way. This is so interesting to me. Worked for free as a handyman for a real estate developer in San Diego to learn about real estate. I'm guessing less for the money and more for the knowledge. Today, he owns $20 million in assets, or $20 million under management, and completely financially free through real estate. He's a real estate developer, world traveler, and freedom junkie. Variety of experience, including raising $7 million in private equities, new construction, multifamily, out-of-state flips, in-state flips, house hacking, value-add hotels. Project sizes range from $100K to $5 million. Today, the bulk of his work is centered around infill development of affordable housing in San Diego County at all level of their financial journey. Adit, welcome to the show. So glad to have you.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. It's a pleasure to be here.
Adit, let's get into your story. I mean, we've had a chance to connect. We have multiple mutual connections, but let's go to your backstory. I know that you were in the military as well as all three of us were as well. So happy day after Veterans Day.
That's right. Happy Veterans Day.
Thank you, Travis. Happy Veterans Day to you as well.
Yeah, let's go back like pre-military. Like, what was young Adit doing? Like before military was on your radar, before real estate was on your radar. What got you into where you are today?
Yeah, totally, Gabe. And once again, it's so awesome to be here, guys, and especially see you here, Gabe. You'll hear at some point the story of how I met Gabe and what Gabe did to me, and frankly, it changed part of my life because of meeting Gabe. So, thank you, man. But yeah, to answer your question, before the military, I was always an entrepreneurial kid, and I always had two jobs. So a part-time and a full-time or something, or a part-time and a side hustle in school. While all the other Indian kids were getting their grades and SAT scores up, I was raking leaves or mowing lawns or had some kind of part-time job. So my first business ever was me with the pickup truck. And during the fall, it was raking leaves. During the winter, it was shoveling snow. And during the summer, it was cutting grass. So that was my first ever business. And then I wanted something different. Everyone in my sphere, in my life, so to say, was going to college. I got into college, but I knew I wanted an adventure and I wanted to leave fast. So I went to every recruiting office. I'm like, hey, how soon can I leave? And the Army was like, you can leave in a month, right? And then
you're going to leave this afternoon.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. I just went shopping, man. Literally it was at the mall. I bought a pair of Reeboks and then I went to the recruiting office, And
then you went shopping for your life.
Literally, dude. Yeah. And then it was crazy. So I talked to the Coast Guard recruiter and he was like, what branches did you talk to? I said, all of them except for you guys in the Navy. He's like, well, yeah, he's like, if you're going to join one, join the Navy or the Air Force or the Coast Guard, right? He's like, because the Army, you're going to get stationed somewhere that it sucks and it's hot. And, the Marines, he said something that I won't repeat. But so I ended up going into the Navy office and they're like, you can leave when you want. You want to leave next week? I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. So ended up leaving in like a month, but yeah. So
Mitch is ex-Navy. I'm Air Force. Gabe he bit the Army hook, I think, right, Gabe? And you're Navy, so that's cool, man.
yeah, so I joined the military and had a great time. I was a bosun's mate. So if you don't know what a bosun mate is, it's where you end up in the Navy if you have a low test score or a criminal record. And so I was surrounded by those kinds of people, but luckily you have to be just slightly above average to really rank up fast. So I did. I busted my ass. I made E5 in right under 3 years and got all the awards, did great. Had a really, saw 20 countries before my 19th birthday and did the whole Navy thing, man. And towards the end, I just felt a calling towards business, felt a calling towards a higher purpose. So in 2019, I decided to leave the military.
So when you were in the military, were you reading books, listening to podcasts? Were you researching business or real estate? Or were you like, did that happen after you jumped out? When did that start? When did the spark happen?
So it's so towards the end, definitely. I was always heavy into personal development, not necessarily business. Cause like for the solid half of my career, I thought I'd be a lifer, I thought I'd do 20. And so I drank the Kool-Aid and did that whole thing. But then when the shift happened, absolutely towards the end, like I've discovered bigger pockets. I used my VA loan to buy a condo. That was my first ever deal. That was a house hack, So yeah, towards the end, I was definitely preparing myself for life outside the Navy and getting my business education, self-education as well.
I have a question about that. During that time when you were, digging into the personal development and you started listening to Bigger Pockets, reading some of the books, were you telling people about what you were doing? Were you telling some of the guys you were with, like, hey, I'm listening to this, I'm reading this, I think I'm going to start investing in real estate? What was kind of like your mindset? And then were you speaking that to the people you were around?
I definitely was, right? And you find out who your real friends are or who your real friends should be real quick, right? But I was absolutely talking all about it. Mostly was received well. A lot of people are just like negative. They're like, you never, you can't do that. That's for rich people or that's for this people and that people, right?
Isn't that crazy that people do that? We've all been through that and people just naysay the crap out of you.
I think they're afraid of you becoming more successful than them or something. I mean, it's like an ego thing.
You're like, I'm gonna have to work for this guy someday. Damn it.
No one who I know who's truly successful is ever intimidated by anyone else's path to success. Like, for example, Mitch, Travis, if one of you were friends, you guys come to San Diego, we're BSing. Mitch tells me, yeah, I'm closing on a $50 million deal, next week. It's awesome. I will feel genuinely happy for you, man. And instead of being like, oh man, this guy, be jealous. Like, hey, how did you do that?
But your mindset though, right? You know there's enough. That's the thing is like, if you're in a mindset where there's not enough and because I had success, you can't, then it's like, oh, now we're in competition. The ego comes into play, the whatever, versus you're like, dude, like, actually, I could pick his brain and learn how he did it and get some connections. And this could be really a fun conversation. It's a different perspective.
Yeah, they say A players want to be around A players and B players make A players want to leave and go somewhere else.
Yeah,
and so
true.
It is true. Eagles want to fly with eagles. And so when I was just telling somebody on our School of Scale call earlier this morning, maybe it was on that, I said, look, you're a 1%er because you think like 1% of the people, or you think unlike 99% of the other people. It truly is a mindset thing. Is there, besides Bigger Pockets, Adit, when you were reading books and listening to podcasts, is there any one book or any one podcast or anything besides Bigger Pockets, but Bigger something? I forget we always hear that name on this podcast, but we don't know who they are. But like, is there something that blew your mind that you'll never forget that changed your life besides Gabe? And I do want to hear that story because Gabe changes a lot of lives. He certainly changed my life.
Every guest comes on there and he's like, wait till I tell you about meeting Gabe. Like it's a repeating. Yeah. Anyway,
I'll share as much details as he permits me, but,
okay. One of those.
Yeah. I mean, in the beginning. So honestly, yes, I was watching the podcast. I was reading the books. I was all of it, man. I could tell you 100 of them, but here's something even more profound that I can tell you. All of them were useless without what I did next, which was getting around people who were doing it. Right.
Amen.
And this is something that I tell, like, you can read all the books, you could buy all the courses, like, nothing, do it if you wish. There are some really good books. There's some people who make some excellent courses, but they're ineffective unless you get around people who are doing it. So what was a game changer for me Number one was going to work for someone for free. And number two was getting in a community. And I got into a few, like at the time I had no money. So just literally free Facebook groups. One of them was for the military that's run by a really good mutual friend of me and Gabe's, Dave Perret. It's called From Military to Millionaire. And really just any community and they have communities for everyone, man. So I would say like the quicker that you get into a tribe, the faster your success is going to take off, because you will be around people who are at the same level as you, and then one step ahead of you, and then 5 steps ahead of you. And being around that kind of energy is powerful. It's really hard to describe, but it's very powerful.
That is such great advice. And I think I know we all feel the same way. So you were listening to the podcast, you're reading the books, you joined into some of the free Facebook groups. David Perret's podcast was actually the second podcast I was ever on years ago. We're all big believers of like, be around people that are playing at the level that you want to play, or, maybe 1 step, 2 steps, 10 steps ahead, because there's so much to learn from. But let's dig into that a little bit. So you joined these groups, but obviously you didn't sit there and do nothing. You took some serious action.
Yeah, definitely. So like, to your point, Gabe, I did join. I got around the right people. I was in the discussions online. I was reading people's things, but I had this crazy idea, man. And I just wanted so bad to be around it. Like, cause I would listen to these people's stories on Bigger Pockets, and I would literally tear up at times. I'd be like, I can do that. I know I can do it. I know I can do it. I know it's right there. And I tried 100 different things. I know a lot of people listening have tried it too. I downloaded the text blasting software and tried wholesaling and cold called for a long time. And I tried everything. That's where everyone starts usually. But, went to the meetups, met a lot of great people, met a lot of mean people who made me feel small. But I just knew that I really wanted to be around it. And I remember like one day I was in the sauna at San Diego State. Like this is the gym I used to go to because I was going to college there at the time. I was like deep in thought. I had this crazy idea. Sit there, I'm just sweating my tail off, man, and it's funny off. How like I was sweating my ass. I was sweating my ass
correction. Off. Yeah,
you can say
yeah, dude. Oh man, you're gonna have to fucking edit this shit out if I really talk like I usually do. But
you're a sailor, man. You're a sailor.
Oh yeah, man. It definitely can. I've been working on it, but so I'm sitting there in the sauna. I had this thought, and I'm like, what is an irresistible offer that no one can say no to? Free labor, like literally. And I'm a handyman, right? So like I'm like, okay, what skills do I have? Well, the only real tangible hard skill that I have is I can fix just about anything, like I can figure it out and fix anything. So I right there on my phone, I got on Bigger Pockets and started messaging literally everyone who looked like they were doing something in San Diego, developers, syndicators, flippers, wholesale. Hey, my name's Adit. These are my skills. Let me come work for you for free. 90, it was, I don't remember the exact number. I'll go back one day and I'll count so I can say the exact number genuinely. At least 100, man. I swear to you, at least 100. 99 of them said no. 5-6 times I hit these people up. I started cold calling them, showing up at their offices. Finally, this one guy's like, dude, come to the job site. So I go to this job site. He's building these 4 houses in Bay Park, a beautiful area in San Diego. I remember getting there to the job site. And he said, all right, move all of these boxes of flooring from one garage to the other. So that's how I started, man. That's literally how I freaking started in real estate.
What a beautiful story. What an incredible story.
I love it.
God. I know. I'm all giddy here. Can I unpack something, man?
Absolutely.
We glossed over it. This guy, I'm talking to our listeners, but this guy got out of the military in 2019, right? Is that what you said?
That's correct.
You are financially free now. You manage over $20 million in real estate. You're broke as a joke. You're out of the military. You really don't have much to your name. You're moving flooring from one garage to the next. And it's 2024 and you're financially free. People think you have to grind it out one small house at a time, a few $100s a month in cash flow, running applications, fixing toilets. Finally, when I'm 70 years old, I get to retire. Dude, you were out in 2019. This shit works with the right mindset, the right education, and taking the right action. So dude, like, wow.
The interesting thing too is like you just said, like, hey, I'm like dialing for dollar. I'm cold calling properties. I'm doing all these things.
Just doing stuff. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just doing it.
There was a switch though, because then at some point you're like, I got to find my who. I got to use what I have, my skills, which like you said, was like fixing anything, right? You don't have a whole lot of money. You don't have connections. You don't have a property. You don't have deals. You're not an operator. You're not all these things you're not, but what are you? Okay. You can fix anything. You connect, and all of a sudden I'm guessing that this guy has made some impact. I'm excited to hear how that goes. But like, I like how your mindset switched from like, look, what I'm doing is not working. I need to switch and start cold calling for my who, not for a deal. Like that's an amazing, like pivotal point.
Well, and Kiyosaki in Rich Dad Poor Dad says work for free. Did you hear that? And is that how you came up with the idea? Like he works for, even when he was a multimillionaire, he worked for free to learn a new skill or get around the right people.
I do remember Kiyosaki does talk about it, but the where I got it from was Think and Grow Rich, the story of Edwin C. Barnes, who went to work for Thomas Edison for free.
So good.
Yeah. So good. I got that, that story, Barnes went to go work for free and ended up being his best sales rep and ended up with equity in Edison's company, So,
but he set out for that. Remember, like in the book, it's cool because he's like, you live in the same city. He's like, dude, I'm going to do this. And this is how I'm going to do it, But then years later, he's like his partner. I mean, what a beautiful story. Okay. Tell us what happened with this guy.
Real quick. I just want to point out, I mean, it really, really it tells the story of law of attraction, but also law of action, which I love, I love talking about. It's like you're sharing, I'm sitting in the sauna. I knew that I could do it. Then I just had to figure out how. Then you actually took action, messaged 100 plus people, had 99 no's, but somebody said yes. Like your story is a great example of doing the things that most people will not do. In fact, I would go back to even when you said, hey, I can do this. A lot of people don't even allow their mindset to go, yeah, I can do this. They go, oh, that would be great. I wish I could. It would be great if I could. It would be nice if I could. But you're sitting there going, yeah, I can do this. People are doing this. I believe I'm capable. And then you're asking yourself, what is it that I need to do in order to make it happen? And then you took action. And the action piece is the thing that a lot of people just, they know they should be doing this thing, but they don't go and make those 100 calls. They don't go and work for free for someone. And the working for free, I think, is a great example of understanding the difference of making money and building wealth, because it sounds like you had the mindset of, hey, I need to get around people that are doing it, and I'm willing to actually work for free to learn the lessons and get the knowledge, regardless if I'm trading my time for dollars.
And you just hit it on the head, Gabe, and Mitch says it's all the time. The wealthy break the tie between I have to trade hours for dollars. Like that was never crossed your mind. You were talking about building connections and building knowledge. And when you break that mental tie between trade hours for dollars, the world becomes your oyster. I'm really curious though, like who freaking says no to a guy that wants to come work for free? First of all,
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah. What?
Totally.
Who does that? Who are these guys? And you also mentioned something earlier. I have two questions. Who the hell does that? And what are they thinking now, Jack? They could have been your partner. Like you're such a valuable human. Also, you said I met mean people at meetups that made me feel little. First, who said no to you? And then who the hell would be mean at a real estate meetup?
Here's what I'll say, right? So anyone who's listening who wants to do this, do this differently from what I did. Figure out what you can do to be valuable. Because when you make someone take that mental time to figure out, like, how does this person fit into my business? That's when they'll say no, or they just will dismiss you, right? So if you want a guaranteed way to get into real estate, figure out how to, right? And then people who make you feel little are just people who've been hurt or are little themselves, And then later, as you mature in life, you realize that that's just what they are. And then instead of making yourself feel little, you just feel empathy for them.
My wife says, hurt people.
They do. Yeah. All the people who hurt people in this world are people who were hurt themselves.
Take me back. You go to this property, you're moving the boxes or whatever you're moving from one garage to the other. Is this guy like, who is this guy? What was the conversation with afterward? How did this thing happen?
Yeah, so he introduced, he was moving the boxes with me, by the way. And we were talking, we just talked. And he told me about what he does. He's still a good friend of mine and still, a mentor in a lot of ways. The real estate developer, a guy who was a software professional, left his job for real estate and started building new construction single and multifamily homes in San Diego, California. He was in a niche that's highly competitive and a very high barrier of entry, right? And I looked at it and I saw this is hard, and hard equals lots of money. I knew that in my life, that if you solve hard problems, you make more money than easy problems. And I said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to try this shit out. So I started doing little stuff for him, like literally like getting units cleaned after turns, doing all the small maintenance items, like handling all of his maintenance calls, unclogging the drains, all of those things I started doing for him. And then eventually I started helping manage his projects, taking plans to the city, making relationships at the city, talking to the architect, talking to the contractor, getting materials to the job site, and seeing these projects go full cycle. And I ended up working with him for 3 years, So it was it was a hell of an experience, and it was kind of like my PhD in real estate development.
Did he end up paying you a little bit? Did you get paid for him, or how are you like putting food on the table during this time?
Yeah. So number one, I was using my GI Bill to go to college, right? And then I was house hacking. So I was literally eating freaking very cheap. I was not spending a lot of money at all.
Yep.
But also he did start paying me after I worked for free for a year. And then the last 2 years I got paid.
Awesome.
Were you driving that growth in terms of what he had you doing? Were you saying, hey, I can do this, or as you spent more time with him and he saw that you had these skills, was he actually putting more on your plate?
So yeah, that's a great question. So I learned in the Navy that if you want to promote, you work your boss out of a job. So that's what I just started doing. Like anything that I thought that I could take off of his plate, I did. And I saw the company grow because of that, because he was a one-man show before me. I was his first hire, so it was like perfect timing for me to enter that organization. It was small enough to where I still had access to him and direct access to the projects, but it was big enough for me to get a huge variety of experience.
I love that. That's also a good advice for people that might be further along in their journey, like kind of like us even. Like sometimes we have to stop and go, man, there's probably a lot of people that would want to work with us to learn from us. And there's things that we need done. And for those of you that are listening that, man, how lucky is this guy to have said yes to you? How lucky, like people seek out people like you, and you actually approached him. So bad on the dumbasses that didn't have you come work for him. Good on this guy. And I had one last, another mindset question. Like, dude, you're a hustler, man. You're like a go-getter. Do you have, like, we always talk about people that overcome adversity, they lace up their boots and step out when shit gets rough. Like, what is your why? Like, what drives you? Like, what makes you get up and face adversity and just do this every day and keep pushing forward?
Yeah. So two things. The reason why I work as hard as I do, is because I see my parents, right? And I see that they're getting old and they work harder than me, man. You guys, like, people look at me like, you work hard. I'm like, you should see my mom and dad. They get up every single day. Wow. They're immigrants to this country, rather. And they sacrificed everything for my sister and I. And that's why I love this country so freaking much, dude. Why I joined the military, dude. It is because of my parents. Yeah. They love this. Yeah. And wow. So they're my wife, also my fiance. Like, for her to now have been able to leave her job and explore her higher purpose because of my efforts. I think as men, brother, like deep down inside, we want to provide, right? At least me. Like, we want for our loved ones, our families, our wives, our children to be able to align with their higher purpose and explore their interests and not be tied down to a job. So as for me as a man, that's a big win for me. For my wife to not have to do anything, only want to do things, right? For her to live that life. Because I think that in the feminine in that type of archetype, in that situation, in that environment, really shines and grows and is most happy, in my belief, right? So that's part of my why. Second, and then why real estate development. The real why is because, like, for example, I have a 3-unit in Paradise Hills, San Diego. That was the ugliest house, ugliest property on the block, drug activity in a neighborhood. People were walking by, their children to school, and people were selling drugs at this property. And I bought it and I turned it around and I put hardworking families there. And now the neighbors, like, literally, I almost teared up the other day. Neighbor came up to me and said, hey, I've been walking my son to school here for 5 years while this shit was going on. And I just wanted to thank you for what you did here, And
wow.
There's no profit margin, dude. Like, there's nothing on a spreadsheet or no check that can equate to that feeling of you being able to make a positive impact on a community, like not like where people live and where people raise their children, dude. Like for you to make that for a safer place for people, that's just, for me, it's something that'll keep getting me going every single day for the rest of my life.
We have the school bus methodology we always talk about, because we buy mobile home parks and improve them, playgrounds, dog runs. Like we love, because these are neighborhoods, right? This is where people live, and we always say like, how would you feel if your kids were getting off the bus at your property? And that's a good litmus test. Something else too that I think you would subscribe to this. Like a good business deal is where everybody wins. Freaking everybody wins. The lender wins. They're getting a yield on their depositors' money. They're making money. Your investors win. They're making money. They're getting equity multiples and cash flow. You're winning. You're improving your cash flow and your net worth. Like, and the community, your tenants win because they have a safe, clean, affordable place to live, whatever the case may be, depending on your asset class. And you just added another stakeholder that we don't think about it as much, as in the freaking community wins. Like, how amazing is that? You just like really changed these people's lives. So that's really cool, man. And I love your whys.
But I am curious, like what that first deal looked like. Like you're working for this guy, you don't really have much money, but you're starting to dream a little more, put together a plan, I'm guessing. Like how did you put together your first deal to break into this world?
Yes. I mean, my first real deal was that condo that I bought, which was a house hack, right? And I just house hacked it, and then I fixed it up, I renovated it, and then when the rates dropped in 2021, I sold it, and then I also used my VA loan again a second time in 2021. I bought late 2020. I bought a 3-unit. Ended up not being able to move in and fulfill like the owner occupancy requirement and stuff because of COVID and the evictions restrictions. So instead, fixed it up as much as we could. We did a lot of exterior renovations, turned a unit there, and then we ended up selling that. I combined entitlement with the veteran. That's why I say we. So it's two of us, and sold that in late 2021 as well, along with the condo. Had 2 6-figure exits within 3 weeks, and had a bankroll now. So now I had options, and I started looking for stuff, infill development, because that's my expertise. I was working for a developer, just too overpriced. I'm an Indian guy, and if you know anything about Indians, if it's worth $1 million, we're not paying more than $600K for it. So you couldn't do that in late 2021. It was simply impossible, right? To accept in one asset class, and that was hotels. So I went and found a hotel guy, and I learned how to raise money. And in 2022, so in late 2021, I exited these properties. In 2022, in 9 months, we bought $20 million worth of real estate. So that was kind of like the moment my life changed. Yeah.
Hey, Adit, you mentioned something that I wanted to go back on really quick. So first of all, if you're a vet and you are not in the real estate game and you're not taking advantage of a VA loan, man, you're missing the boat. All of us used it. I mean, I don't know about Gabe, but I know I used a VA loan and house hacked my first house. I know Mitch did. Gabe, I don't know. Have you ever used a VA loan?
Yeah, I have a VA loan on my primary residence now.
Okay. So, and I love the fact people don't know this, but like you have to be an owner occupied. You could buy a multi-unit property. Man, if I could go back and do it again, I bought a house and I walled off half the garage and rented a bedroom. It was a small house. I'd go try and buy a 3 or a 4-plex using the freaking VA loan, like no money down, and you fill it. You put the other the units, you fill them with residents. But you had mentioned, oh man, do it. If you're a vet and you're not using the VA loan, shame on you. Sorry, shame on you. Not to shame people, but shame on you. Also, but you said combined entitlement. I don't know what that is. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So if and by the way, there's going to be some lender on here who's going to throw like a bitch fit because I said one thing wrong. Do your own research, people, but here's my understanding. Here's what I did.
If you're a lender and you're a little bitch, you can jump off right now.
Yeah, just go ahead and forward this part. The rest of the show is going to be great, but this part might trigger you. So if you have 2 veterans, right? So I that's hilarious. Yeah. I already had a VA loan out, right? So I partnered with another veteran who did not have any VA loan. And together we have unlimited entitlement, so we can buy another property, right? With both of us on the loan. So yeah, because I had already been living in my condo for over 2 years. That area was getting like kind of shady. So I didn't want to live there anymore.
How would you have unlimited entitlement? Was because can you just buy one more with him, or was that, am I missing something?
Yes, one more, but like when I mean entitlement, I mean like how much VA loan can you get? Like every county has their county, so your entitlement is effectively restored instead of being tied up in a VA loan.
I see. Okay, got it. I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Dang it, I have a VA loan. I'm not using a VA loan, but I want to do that, but I don't want to live in it. I already have my house. We'll have to talk about that after the show. Anyway,
so let's talk about. So you did that, but then you casually mentioned that you bought $20 million of real estate in 9 months. Let's dig into that.
I mean, the punchline, guys, is I learned how to syndicate. So I learned how to syndicate. That's around the time when I met Gabe. Gabe actually helped me save a deal. I'll get into it as much or as little as he wants me to. But yeah, so we found a hotel expert who's like a 25-year Cornell hospitality graduate, hotel savant, 15 successful exits, and basically created a private equity solution for him. Right. And bought a bunch of hotels together. We bought 4, $20 million worth, and learned how to syndicate. And around that time, so imagine $20 million of assets in 9 months, right? How long do you think the typical person would take to build $20 million of assets? If you were to just throw a number.
Usually never, but maybe 10 years. I mean, yeah.
So imagine a decade versus worth of growing pains and mistakes and shit going wrong in 9 months. It was insane, bro. It was insane. And mind you, I had just become financially free because of that shit. So now I'm balling, and I went and freaking traveled the world during this time. So I'm building a business, traveling the world. I'm living in Colombia, South America, having a good time while also dealing with the chaos of this business. And it was a lot of lessons learned. Like that was my puberty in real estate, man. Everyone goes through puberty in real estate where they just, if someone says that, like before 2020, there was all these people who'd go on Bigger Pockets and shows and stuff and say, yeah, I've never lost money in real estate, never had a deal go wrong, never had anything go wrong. If you still haven't had anything go wrong, you're probably just not playing a big enough game. Right. And then
that's
number
a really
2,
good point.
The other thing that I'll say is, so I had $90,000 of personal money in escrow, and probably another 90,000 of investors' money. Earnest money deposit goes hard, now non-refundable. I have to come up with $600,000 in 4 days, right? To pay to close on this property, or else I'm losing the deposit, right? So I reached out to my brother. He's literally a brother, and not even in business, in life. David Perret. David Perret reached out to a few people. One of them was Gabe Hamill. Gabe Hamill got on the phone with me, aligned with my values, and took a chance on me and loaned me that money. And I paid every dime back to him with interest. I actually paid half of it back early. And now I have a lifelong person who says that I paid them back, and I got that deal done. So, great, Gabe. I know I've texted it to you, bro, but I would just like to take a moment and thank you for taking that chance on me, man, because you had every reason not to. And I'm so grateful to you, brother, for you taking that chance on me and believing in me. I don't know what I said. I don't know what I did, but whatever it was, man, I like from the bottom of my heart, man, I'm so grateful to you for that.
Yeah, man, you're very welcome. And it's interesting because the timing that and looking back, I don't know what it is either, right? Like it was, I felt like you were the right person to lend that money to. Like we had a conversation, we had a mutual friend who I knew and liked and trusted, and it felt right at the time. You felt like the right person and the right deal, and it made sense. And you did pay back every penny of that loan with interest. And it was a win-win. Like it was a great way for us to connect. You did what you said you were going to do, right? And some of that was instinct, and some of that was just it made sense at the time for the person and the asset.
A lot of people talk about gut, and Gabe, you just said instinct. That's gut, and we've talked about gut in a lot of ways. Like I should have trusted my gut. I did this. I screwed up. I messed up. This property went to hell. Gabe and I are dealing with some stuff in Oklahoma City that we should have trusted our gut on this. But the same holds true. Like trust your gut in a positive way too. Like Gabe's talking, he's like, he trusted his instinct and trusted his gut on that. So what a cool story. By the way, for those of you that are listening that don't know, Adit mentioned syndication. Syndication is basically where you pool people's money together. You have general partners, limited partners. So general partners are you buy the property, you operate it. And you have limited partners that are really supposed to be passive in a deal and just provide the capital. And so I'm curious on, if you learn how to syndicate, you're learning about raising capital, right? That's a big mindset block that a lot of people have. And you, by the way, you raise capital in the form of debt with Gabe in that particular case, right? But like, what have you learned? Like, how did you go out and get people to trust you to give you money in the form of debt, like Gabe, but also in equity? Like, if you could sum that up, like, because a lot of people are like, I can't go have a weird, awkward conversation and ask people for money. Like, if you were to sum up how you overcame the mindset block and like tactically how you did that, I think our listeners would love to hear about that.
This is powerful stuff, guys, and you will become a millionaire. You will make a lot of money, but if you do this wrong, you will screw a lot of people over, and you will tarnish your reputation, and you will cause a lot of evil things to happen, right? So first and foremost, you must be aligned with your higher purpose and mission, right? Whether you believe in God or the universe or whatever, I believe in God personally, but you need to make sure that deep inside that you are healed as a human being, that you have the maturity and you have the fortitude in the face of adverse times to stay strong to your values. If you have any question about that, take time to develop that first before you go start raising money. I have had to make investors whole by liquidating my own personal assets. I've done it, and I'll continue to do it, right? I've had to do it. I've had deals go wrong. And if you're not prepared to do the absolute right thing, even to your own detriment, don't raise any money. Right now, I will tell you the most powerful phrase / mindset reshift to completely change how you raise capital. You are not raising capital. You're not asking people for money, right? When I asked you, Gabe, to loan me that money, I wasn't asking you for money because I needed it. Yeah, I freaking needed it. I would have lost money, right? But that wasn't it. In that moment, yes, so it's a bad example, but I would reframe it as, I am giving Gabe the opportunity to earn a very high yield investment on stale capital that he has sitting around, right? I am giving them, I only have this. I am the only one who has this opportunity. I am the most qualified. I have a very aggressive return, right? And I have a value structure that is so strong that keeps that capital more secure than it would if that investor put it in S&P, where it's subject to emotions and what that CEO tweets. Right? Or if that investor leaves it in a CD and they literally just lose money to inflation, right? That, if you reframe that, you are giving people access to private investments that they would never have access to without you. That is how you raise capital. And that is how you never have any awkward conversations, because it's no longer a conversation. It's just, this is what I got going on. Here's the door. I'm opening it for you.
I think that's very well articulated. I saw this aside from instinct, and just trusting my instinct. And I saw it as an opportunity, right? I didn't see this as you begging for money. This was essentially a short-term bridge loan with a great return on my money. I had a high level of liquidity, and I was looking to place my money somewhere to earn interest. And so everything you articulated is absolutely true. That combined with your ability to explain it clearly, the ability to trust you, but I 100% being on the other side of that deal, I saw it as an opportunity. I accepted it as an opportunity, and it created a win-win scenario. You got your deal done. I earned a great return on my money in the short term. Everybody won.
I love to also, you mentioned your higher purpose. We say this a lot in the tribe. First of all, you nailed it. Like, at some point, you got to realize that you are providing a service to people. No one's doing you a favor. You're doing them a favor. You have the knowledge, you have the resources, you have the network to make a nice return for their money. Also, treat other people's money more importantly than your own. And you basically said that. You said, I'd look to my own detriment, I will make investors whole. And I saw a lot of people in the run-up that were flippantly raising tens of millions of dollars in capital that had no fiduciary responsibility to their investors, and shame on them. And you're right, they're pure evil. Gabe and I are in the same situation. We were investors, passive investors of these deals, and shame on them. So I love that you say that, because if you truly want to scale in a short period of time, in a few years, like you're going to partner, you're going to have to raise capital. And I would say attract capital, because if you're out there and you're knowledgeable and you're kicking ass, you're going to attract people. You said stale capital. We like to see rotting capital, rotting cash in bank accounts, right? Like, so that's pretty cool, man. And also last thing to unpack, you reached out to your network and found Gabe. Your network is your net worth. Man, if you don't have a network, it's going to be really hard. There's going to be a lot of friction in your scale. So network is a mindset hack, but it's also how you reach out to find lenders, private money lenders. I need someone that provides insurance for Oklahoma City, or I need someone that can do that. There's always people in your network that you can tap. So what a valuable lesson there.
To your point, network is your net worth. I got that because yes, Dave Perret is literally one of my best friends, right? At the time we were really close, and now we're even close. Like I consider him a brother. That was, almost 4 years ago now. But I was paying to be a part of his mastermind, like it's because I paid to be in a community, and the people and I mentioned that you have a community. You mentioned that you have a tribe community. Join. If you're listening to this podcast and you resonate with these guys' messages, I know Gabe and you guys seem like great guys. Join this community if you resonate with these three, because you're going to find someone where you listen to them and you're like, I like these guys. I like their values. Get around them, because it's going to be an absolute game changer for you. It's going to accelerate and propel you more than you will ever on your own. I promise you that it's worth it. I promise you that it's worth any price. If I could go back and spend more money on communities and masterminds, I absolutely would. And by the way, I don't have one. So, this is not I don't have I don't have a mastermind. So to sell you. So
but
this is just literally genuine.
It is so true. And I appreciate you saying that. I mean, I've had the same experience. I mean, I believe we're always one conversation, one relationship, one idea away from up-leveling our life in some way. And you have to get around people that are playing life in a big way. I think financially and personally. So let's continue on your story. So you bought four hotels in 9 months. Is that correct? 20 million in real estate.
That's right.
What did that look like structurally? How do you structure that? How much capital are you raising? How many investors? Kind of walk us through those 9 months.
Sure. So numbers wise, 4 hotels, we raised around $6-7 million in capital for those hotels, right? As a side, we also did a syndication for a software company, which by the way has been one of my best LP positions to date. I'm not even, that one was crazy, but we did a syndication for a software company. We took like a general partner equity. So there's limited partners and general partners. Limited partners are people who invest. They're passive investors. General partners are sponsors, deal makers, guarantors, etc. We would take 20 to 30% of the deal and give 70 or 80 to our limited partners. The hotels were doing amazing in 21 and 22. And then in 23, the rate went up, and I learned all about floating rates, and I got absolutely taken through the ringer. Right. And now I have blood on me, guys. I officially have blood on me. I personally spent a lot of money to keep them afloat. My partner, David, liquidated his personal assets to keep the debt paid. And to date, we haven't lost a dollar of investor capital. Proud to say that. Also have never done a capital call, have never asked investors for more money, nor do we ever intend on it, and the market seems to be opening up, and whether it does or not, I know 2 things. Number 1, I'll never take a fucking variable rate loan. Number 2, I'll never do something that I don't understand. I'm a real estate developer, guys. You know what I'm saying? I'm a construction guy. I have boots on right now. I'm about to go to a job site right after this to go be the building inspector. When I take dollars from an investor, I need to be able to tell them that I am the subject matter expert, right? Not that they're investing through me as like a proxy to the expert, right? That I control the outcomes. So I realized, number 1, I need to be an asset class where I control 100% of the outcomes. And number 2, variable rates are never a good idea, no matter what. There's just zero use case for them.
Do you think people would have learned through 2008, 2009, then there's so many people like, I forgot, let's do this variable rate thing.
In my defense, I was 12 years old. So, I mean.
Okay, well, thank you. You make me feel like an old bastard now.
Yeah, but for some, it's just short-term. Yeah,
this was 45 in 2008. So, yeah.
I was 40. Shut up, Mitch. I'm 47, not a dick. Okay.
Oh, that's what you say.
I wrote a question down here, Adit, that said, What was your number one lesson in those 9 months? And maybe you just answered it. You mentioned it too, right? Like, be the subject matter expert. Like, don't be a proxy for somebody else. By the way, we always talk about that. Niche down on an asset class and become really damn good at it. And then you said, don't take variable rate loans. Are those your number? If you could sum it up, would that be your number one or number two, your two biggest lessons?
So I like to think in two layers, Travis. I think on a metaphysical layer on things that we can't see, but we feel, right? And things that do exist that we know, but are not physically visible, nor can you touch them, right? And then on a tangible. So from a tangible sense, yes, those were the two lessons. But from a metaphysical sense, do not align yourself with people who do not have the same values as you, right? I had business partnership go bad, business partner divorce had to go through with that, right? Number two, if you are a man, the two things that you can always count on is your own spine and your own balls, right? Never abdicate your spine and balls to another man, ever, right? And number three, people are not always who they seem, right? And I'm not talking about the guy who I named by name, David Stahl. He's an excellent hotel operator, would do business with him for life. But another business partner of mine made himself seem like he was a syndication, private equity, hotel expert, which he was not. You know, and I was still, look, guys, I was barely 2 years into real estate when I was going through all this, right? So me as someone who it worked for me once, right? I went and worked for a developer and I learned so much and he was a great guy. So it's like, oh, now I need to go do this with this guy to get to the next level, right? And it didn't turn out that way. But to sum it up, the third thing is no matter what happens, you will always be okay if you choose to be okay, right? No matter what happens, guys, take the risk, buy the property, let it go to shit. If it was meant to go to shit, it will, but you're going to learn something out of it. And the second time, it won't ever happen again. You know, you must go through adversity to be a resilient and strong operator, which is what investors want and are the operators who scale massively. You must, right? You must go through it. Go through it now. Get it out of the way. Fall on your face. Do it many times. So when the training wheels come off, you're good to go. You've already been through it.
You're hardened. This does sound very familiar, doesn't it, Gabe? Kind of like listening to him, like you're making me feel better about myself because we went through some similar things. I had a question when you met this third guy that we'll just call him Bob, bonus Bob, this guy, we will not mention his name because he's an asshole. By the way, what did your gut tell you about Bob when you first met him? Like in hindsight?
I'll tell you this, man. This was 3 years ago, but dude, I feel like a completely different man. And I was a boy back then for all intents and purposes, man. I was a boy, like now I'm a man, but my gut wasn't as developed. I felt a little bit off about him, like I was like, I don't know if this guy, he would say certain things like his pro formas would have some errors that were very basic. It would come to light that he has a bad credit score. He doesn't have liquidity, like these kinds of things, there were these signs, but, you would be so surprised how much you ignored the truth when it's right there in your face.
Yeah,
You'd be so surprised how much you want to paint roses, right? And what got me out of that way of thinking is that there's no negative and there's no positive in life. There's just the truth, and it is what it is, right? So you must see it for what it is in order to be solutions oriented, right? So that's the biggest thing I learned out of that. But yeah, to answer your question, there were definitely signs, man.
Also, like, ask people, like, if I was to go back and do it again, one thing I've learned when you're going to say you're an LP, you want to invest with somebody, you're a GP and you want to partner with somebody, always ask, tell me about a time when shit hit the fan, when shit went wrong. How did you respond? And then talk to other people that worked with that person. How did they respond? How did they act? Like you said, they were transparent. They communicated with me the whole time. I didn't see a capital call. They liquidated their own assets. We did this, we did that. Like, that's true. That's very telling. And don't just ask Bob. Ask people that have worked with Bob too. So good advice. Sounds like you're still holding these hotels. Hopefully things turn around on them. We own a hotel and we saw occupancy dip. That sucked. Just sort of at the hangover of the COVID rush.
Yep.
But tell us what you've been doing since then. What's your asset? What's your portfolio look like?
Yeah, totally. So I noticed in hotels, things were not going right. And whenever things are not going right in your life, it's because you are not aligned with your higher purpose. That's all it is. It's that simple. So I had to realign with my higher purpose. One, I had to come back and ground myself and think and search for the truth within me. And the truth was that God put me on this earth to transform communities through the creation of housing. That I know, because when I do that, everything just goes right and works itself out, you know? So I came back and I started just building housing, man. I started with a duplex, went to 2 units, got a 3-plex, took it to 5 units. And now I'm buying a 10-plex that I'm taking to 16 units, you know? So I focus on infill development. I'm kind of the intersection of the transformation of communities through affordable housing, while helping investors get high yielded returns on their savings. So that's what I'm all about now. I found my purpose. I found my mission, and I don't really see myself doing anything different in life, at least not for a very long time.
I love it, man. I feel like this is one of those episodes that listeners are going to have to go back and listen to 2, 3, 4 times. I mean, just so much gold just from a mindset aspect, from taking action to just doing the right thing and making sure you're in alignment with yourself and your partners. I'm going to probably go back and listen to it multiple times.
I've had like chills like 3 or 4 times. I'm like sitting over here going like, I'm learning. I mean, I'm just learning so much and listening, man. I love your mindset. I love how there's this like you described sort of the layers and how you think, and how you really went back and centered yourself, really looking for your purpose. Like, I think a lot of people dismiss that as sort of woo woo or whatever, but I'm like, no, this is where it is. That is the meat, and everything else is a byproduct of that. Anyway, I've had a lot of fun listening to your story.
I had one question. Could you define just a little bit for our listeners, like infill? Like, when you say I'm an infill specialist, like, can you wrap a definition around that? Because I think we've had another guy on the podcast that's doing some cool stuff in California, which a lot of times are like, that's not a landlord unfriendly state. It's hard to make money in California, but you're doing well in California. So maybe talk a little bit about that strategy, and then we'll get you out of here with a final question.
Totally. Yeah. So infill development, the biggest, so let's just, can we all agree that development is one of the most lucrative niches in real estate? The creation of new assets. Would you all subscribe to that as a true statement? Okay. Now, the reason why development is one of the most lucrative is because it also inevitably carries the biggest risk, because you're tying your money up into literal dirt, right? And the bulk of the developer's risks lies around 2 different things. Okay. It lies around approval, meaning when there's discretionary approval, changing of zoning, changing of land use involved. That's when projects can go south, because you thought you could build apartments, but ends up you can only build a landfill or some shit like that, right? And number 2 is debt. So carrying costs. Developers often carry massive carrying costs and have assets that will not perform for a very long time, but the expenses of peak performance arrive a lot sooner. So you could be paying expenses that should be on, for layman's terms, like you're paying the expenses of a 100-unit apartment building when you're still in month 3 of construction, debt wise, right? So in order to have the lucrative profits of development while reducing the risk and making it interesting and secure for investors, number 1, infill development for me focuses only on ministerial approval, meaning approval is guaranteed. There's no discretionary approval. There's no public council opinion. There's no nothing. It's the law says I can build this. That's what I'm building. So I don't do anything discretionary. I only do ministerial guaranteed approval, right? Exactly. Yep. And number 2 is infill development is buying an existing income producing asset, or an asset that has a clear path to produce income within 6 to 12 months. While you get all your approval and permits and construct your additional units, right? So it's kind of a disruptive business model within development. Mine specifically focuses on the creation of attainable housing. So I believe that, having come from hotels where it does go wrong, because frankly, hotels are not a human necessity. In rough times, people will choose not to pay for a hotel, right? They will never not choose to pay for a good deal apartment. You will always have someone to rent your apartment if it is attainable for them. So that's what I build.
So Adit, that last property you were talking about, was it 10 units or 12 units that you're turning into 16? Was that the numbers on that?
That's correct. Yep. 10 to 16.
So you buy it, here's a 10-unit apartment complex, but you go in and you say, hey, look, I can either add on the same piece of piece of property, or I can add inside the bounds of the 4 walls 6 more units, therefore force appreciate this building. I'm sort of making I'm taking a cash flow asset, I'm making it better, I'm adding units. Am I thinking right about that?
That's correct. So this specific deal is by garage conversion. So we're going to convert 9 garages into 6 units, and you can do that all day long in California. Right? I've also done.
Brilliant. So brilliant.
Yeah. So that's the game here. I've also done new construction where you build additional units in the background or backyard rather. I bought a construction company, so I'm a general contractor now. I'm fully vertically integrated now. So I build it, I manage it. I also handle the equity. I also handle the debt. And across the board, my investors are well protected because I learned from abdicating my control in hotels that if I maintain control across all verticals, that I can create better outcomes for my investors.
The point I was going to make, and that's so cool, man. You're turning garages into apartments. So when Adit looks at something, he looks at it through a completely different lens than 99% of the other people. Everybody else sees a 10-plex. It's a 10-plex. What can I do with a 10-plex? It's a 10-plex. You're like, I see a 16-plex. Also, like when you were 12, because I'm an old bastard, like Mitch would like to point out, when you were 12, I went through 08, I was building spec houses. And when shit hit the fan, I was sitting on dirt with interest-only loans or a half-built home. And I was screwed because I couldn't produce 1 cent of income off of these properties. And what a way to mitigate your risk by having income-producing property, producing actual income while you're improving it through occupancy and or expansion. So that's a really cool space to be in. So.
Adit, so say you lost it all, right? You lost all your properties, you lost your net worth, and you lost your network, right? And you're sitting there on the couch, and it's this moment of like, you have your knowledge, but you've lost everything else. So the question is, what do you do first? What's your next big move?
I decide what I want to do, whether it's like, let's just say, for example, real estate again, and I find someone who is doing it really well and go be valuable to them. That's how I start. I and then simultaneously, if I don't have any money, if I do, join some kind of community. Those are my two first steps.
And network's at where it's at. It's all the answers. So, well, this was awesome, man. I hope to maybe in the future we can have you back and do an update. This was so much fun. So just thankful to have you on.
Yeah, awesome episode, man. I'm glad that we got you on here. It's cool how we originally connected, and it's great to get you on here and actually dig more into your story. I knew some about you. I know even more about you now, and even more impressed than I was when we met several years ago.
That means the world from you guys, man. Seriously, like you guys made my day. My energy is dripping, dude, right now. So thank you.